Hi, so my name is Shannon Stoddard, and what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about Los Alamos National Lab, kind of where we are as an organization, what issues we have, what problems we have, what we're going to do to solve them, and how we're going to end up being a viable, successful company at the end of the day. Okay, which is something that we all want, so we're all going to be on the same page. Okay, so I want to kind of set the tone and set the table for what the problem is and kind of what we need to correct. So as everybody knows, the lab was super important in the Cold War. You know, it started in 1943, and the main focus was designing nuclear weapons. Lots of research in that area. However, when the Cold War came to an end, the viability of the lab was also coming to an end. So the problem is, in order for this company to continue to be successful, we either need to change completely, or we're going to be part of history, just like the Cold War that we supported. So everybody here knows, loves, and cares about the lab. Nobody wants the company to go, into history. So some what we call transformational changes are going to have to happen in order for this lab to continue to be successful in a viable organization. So for those of you who don't know what the word transformational change means, essentially it's creating massive changes in an organization, everything from process to culture, orientation to its environment, mission, everything from start to finish. It's massive, and it affects every single part of the organization, every single person. But this is what has to happen in order for us, as I said, to be successful. So the next thing I want to talk about really is the context of this change and then the obstacles we're going to face as we try to move forward with it. Obviously, when you're trying to change the very foundation and the mission of your organization, it's going to be hard. You're going to have detractors and you're going to have avoiders because the lab is going to be going from basically a government-funded entity into one of customer service, which is a huge shift, a very huge shift actually. So we're going to run into people who are detractors, and those people, are not going to buy into this new business direction. They're not going to buy into the new leadership that we're going to have to put in place. We're going to have avoiders, people who don't want to participate in the change, right? They're going to say, I want to put my head in the sand and I'm not interested. And then as we change the organization, the very structure of the organization, people's jobs are going to change. So they're going to be going from being dictated to they're going to have to make a decision to move forward. And we're going to have to rely on people to make these decisions. And that's not going to sit well with some. They're going to be very uncomfortable. So we're going to have a lot of training in place, and we're going to have to really send out specific messaging on why this is important and why they should do it. Because at the end of the day, change management boils down to answering that question, what's in it for me to do this? So we have to be able to answer that question for them, what's in it. So the next big question that I know you're thinking about right now is how in the world are we going to change all of this leadership and all of this management and continue to run the organization? And it's a very good, very, very good question. It's a very tricky question too. So we're going to approach this in two different ways. The first way is by anytime you have a large goal, like what we're doing, and it seems a little overwhelming, you just break it down into little bitty chunks until it becomes very manageable. So that's the first thing we're going to do. So we're going to take section by section and deal with each, tiny unit and change the management and change the style of that unit and move on to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. So that's one way we can do it. The other way we can do it, which this will probably happen as well, is we can offer early buyouts to our senior management. And so for those who don't want to participate in this change, or who say, I'm done, it's time for me to go, they'll leave, and then we can simply replace those, with new people coming in. And that's obviously going to be the most painless way to do it. And we can still run our organization as we make these transitional changes. Now, human resources is also going to play a massive role in what we're doing here. Because as we continue to make these changes in the organization, and they're so huge, we're going to have to really re-educate and retrain most of our staff, especially those middle managements who are going to have a lot more responsibility, especially in decision making. So what we're going to have to do is, first of all, start with HR and make sure that they have the tools they need to train our staff to do what they need to do for all of us to be successful. Now, as we move forward with this change, I think it's going to be very, very important that we set reasonable expectations. Because when you set out change, especially those people who are, really excited about it and are wanting this to happen, I think everybody needs to realize that this is not going to be an overnight change. So those expectations have to be real, and the milestones have to be achievable. So this isn't something that we can change in a year, maybe not even change in 2 years. So I think when we build out our project plan, we're going to have to set, like I said, very reasonable expectations and goals for everybody to meet. Because if we start setting goals that are not going to be too much for everybody to accomplish, then those people who were advocates of this change will slowly start to fall off and actually may end up being avoiders if we don't handle this properly. So setting reasonable expectations are going to be essential to our success. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in some consultants from some other companies to evaluate our change plan and how we're doing with it, and then to obviously offer some advice as we move forward if we do run into obstacles. But some things that we're going to definitely keep our eye on. Number one is clear communication with the staff. We need to make sure everything is transparent, and we need to make sure that they feel as though they have a voice. If they don't have a voice, they're not going to buy in, and we will fail. So that's going to be our number one goal, is to make sure that that line of communication is open. We have to be very, very clear of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So that's another thing that's going to be essential for our success. And then again, that last thing, which I've talked about several times already, is making sure that those management level supervisors and managers, that they have the tools they need to be successful and to make decisions, because that's going to be a departure from what they've done previously. So we want to make sure that those high valued employees, those who have bought into the lab, continue to be successful in their job, but we have to give them the tools they need to be successful. So we need to make sure that that happens as well. So to kind of summarize what we talked about today, in order for us to be successful, we have to set a very clear and concise mission and vision for our employees. They have to know exactly why we're making our change, what the change is going to be. We're going to be very transparent about it. We have to really open up the lines of communication to the staff. They have to really feel like they're a part of this, that their decisions are being, or their voices are being heard, and we're incorporating some of their ideas into the change. And this isn't just something that senior management's going to make the change and we're just dictating to them. This is going to be a group and team effort. So having town halls, any email forms, anything like that will definitely be incorporated into what we're doing. And then lastly, and most importantly, is that expectations have to be real. They have to be achievable, and everybody has to be on board with it, because if we're all pulling together, we will be successful. But if we have unreasonable expectations, or if maybe nobody knows what the expectations are, that could lead to disaster. So clear line of communication and reasonable expectations will be the key to our success.